Thank you to the panel. Thank you for doing what you do and bringing us the news and uncovering the truth. Look, I always find these Reuters panels, editorial sessions fascinating. You know, how they do what they do so well. I found this one especially humbling, so thank you very much indeed. Right, I'm going to take a breath because we are going to change tack now, and it's quite a big tack to the money flows. Heavy investment in infrastructure and public-private partnerships has transformed the economy in the Middle East, of course. How are businesses and governments capitalizing on all of the opportunity here? Where is a capital flowing now is the question we ask. Please welcome our event moderator, Richard Dean, to the stage to introduce this next discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon. So the question is, where is capital flowing now? And I can think of I can struggle to think of two people better qualified to answer that question than our guests today. First up, we have, to my direct left, the Chief Investment Officer at NEOM, responsible for developing and implementing NEOM's investment strategy. Previously, with GE, as the President and Chief Executive Officer at GE Renewable Energy for the Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Manar Al Moneef. Dr. Manar, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
And we also have joining us also from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the founder and CEO of Saudi Technology Ventures, or STV. It's described as the largest technology investment firm in this region, $1.5 billion plus. Some of its high-profile investments you will have heard of include Kareem, Dhabi as well. Previously, he held executive leadership roles at Google's headquarters. Please join me in welcoming Abdulrahman Tarabzouni. Abdulrahman, good to have you with us. Known affectionately in the industry as AIT. Ahlan wa sahlan. Good to have you with us.
Yeah.
Dr. Manar, can I start with you first of all? NEOM in Saudi Arabia. Those of us who are fans of Reuters will know that journalists write a story. Barely a day goes by without a headline. So, cut through the noise. What is, in your view, the reason for being at NEOM? Just refresh our minds on that, and then give us the latest progress report if you can.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here with you today. Just maybe let me just go a bit back to bring why NEOM is. If you all remember, everyone was talking in the last decade about carbon dioxide emission increasing on a daily basis. They're speaking about water shortage. They're speaking about the fact that we consume food faster than the time it takes us to grow it. But yet, no one around the globe was able to come and put a solution. What are we going to do to address these challenges? What is the future looking like? What do we need to do? And that's where the idea of NEOM came from in the beginning. It is simply a place where it represents for you the future. It's a place that represents for you a global opportunity, a greenfield development that will enable you to do three things. First one is to reimagine sustainability. So sustainability is very important. It measures the day-to-day operation and how do we work. And what is the future of sustainability, future of industries, and so on. The second one represents a global opportunity to reimagine businesses. What are the different ecosystems that you need to create in the future to create jobs? What kind of industries do you need to build to actually meet what is the future going to look like in 30 and 50 years? Specifically with AI disruption today, the way that we work and the kind of industries is going to shift significantly to what you predict is going to be there in 20, 30 years. And NEOM will provide for you an opportunity where you will be able to test some of these new concepts, validate them, see what kind of infrastructure is required to build them and take them forward. And the third thing NEOM will be able to do is simply a global opportunity to redefine livability, which is today specifically when you focus on the youth, livability is a very big component that everyone is looking at. And when you add all of these three things together, it's actually at the cornerstone of Vision 2030, which simply focuses on two things. Vision 2030, transforming the economy and diversifying the economy, as well as improving the quality of life. And NEOM is at the heart of doing that. So that's why NEOM and what we're doing. And if you think about it and just, if you think of the vision of NEOM, which is quite interesting, many people do not really focus on the vision of NEOM. It is simply where the greatest mind and talent are empowered with the most pioneering idea to come and develop what is the future. We're not saying we're going to be developing, a tall building or a big mall. On the contrary, we're saying it is the land of the future where the greatest mind and talent are empowered to develop the most pioneering idea. That's a very big thing and a very big statement, because simply you're giving the tools to people to come and innovate and introduce the future. So that's what NEOM is about. Now, where we are, we're actually moving according to plan. We're really busy in developing the required infrastructure. Remember, we're building a city that is in scale the same size of Belgium. So when you're developing something, that's something long-term that require a lot of development, from building the required infrastructure, from roads, from energy, connectivity, mobility. It takes multiple decades to actually be able to finish and achieve the target that you need to have. So work is under progress. We're moving ahead, and we're developing a lot in that area.
There is a follow-up question, of course, about where the capital is flowing, and we'll come to that. But Abdulrahman, if I can turn to you first of all. In answering this question, you said you wanted to frame it in a number of different themes. And you said the first one, and the most important one, is underpinning all of this, that this region is building the AI wave, whereas previously the region has been a consumer of cutting-edge technology. Explain that to us.
Absolutely. I think, Richard, it's really important to put things in both a global context and on a time axis context. This region, for a very long time, has been a consumer of technology, and most of the capital allocation that has been happening, especially in the GCC, has been geared towards building infrastructure, education, mostly in a bit of CapEx, more OpEx, in which governments had to take on the burden of employment and creating a base layer for economic activity. But I think what's happening now is completely different, and you can see this very intensely happening in places like here in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia, where the push for modernization is very synonymous with private sector empowerment, innovation-driven economies, and outsourcing of this value creation game back to the private sector, where the government becomes an enabler. Now, what this means is there are various efforts across these governments to unlock capital and reallocate that capital towards more sustainable business models that are private sector driven. Now, where this is happening extremely intensely is in the technology sphere. And we're seeing this probably, if you look at the last few decades of the GCC, there was never a time in which two very large, extremely sizable economies are explicitly saying, this is my bet on the future. I want AI and the next wave of technologies to be not only consumed here and pioneered here from a use case point of view, but also to be built here and localized here. And this is a completely new narrative. Now, for us as investors, when we look at this, we get really excited, because what this means is more of this capital is going to be localized and hopefully compounded within our own geographies. Gone are the days in which governments of the 90s and the 80s used to look at whatever we called technology in the day, whether it was the World Wide Web or later the mobile internet or now AI. Those governments did not look at this or these technology flows as sovereign and critical questions to deal with and understand and localize. The governments of today in the GCC are seeing these as essential, as existential, as sovereign. And I think that's one big piece of what's going on. Now, when we look at the landscape, technology investment and venture capital investment in the GCC has been growing exponentially. Value creation in the space has been proven. $30 billion of technology venture-backed companies were created in the Middle East in the last 5 years. So it's happening, right? But now looking at the quantum, we're very, very far from where we need to be. If you normalize tech and VC investments by GDP of our markets in the GCC, we're among the lowest in the world still, surprisingly, right? Despite all the momentum you see. We need to not only 2x or 3x or 5x the quantum of VC and tech investment in our regions in the GCC to get to global benchmarks. We're probably looking at a minimum of 10x the size for us to be globally relevant on a healthy benchmark. So I'll leave it at that, and happy to dig deeper later.
Okay, good stuff. We've got about 10 minutes left. Thank you very much indeed to everyone who sent in questions via Slido. We will get to those, but a couple of brief follow-up questions from me, if I may. Dr. Manar, in terms of capital flowing into NEOM, you gave me a number earlier, 60 billion Saudi riyals. Briefly, where is that money going?
Simply to develop a lot of private sector opportunities that we're looking at. So NEOM, today in the current stage that we're in today, there is a lot of infrastructure development. And 60 billion is the number that we were able to attract from the private sector. That's primarily on a number of projects. The first one is the NEOM Green Hydrogen project that was announced a few years ago, and it is going to start operating in 2027, producing at least 600 tons of hydrogen on a daily basis. The second one is the NEOM Logistic Company, which is a joint venture with DSV, which is one of the global logistic providers globally. That's around 39 billion Saudi riyal. And then there is a couple of infrastructure related to hotels and data centers and so on. So the private sector is very interested. The private sector is very hungry and want to play a major role in the development of NEOM. Previously, when you used to look at infrastructure, it used to be primarily a government-led. They used to do it. And private sector used to shy away from participating in infrastructure development or some project related to it. And that was primarily due to many reasons. They were not very visible. We didn't have maturity of the entire infrastructure project. But today you have developed a platform where the system is more mature. Public-private partnership became a major area of focus for both the private sector and the government to partner together and to move forward. This was enabled by creating more visibility about the opportunities, having flexibility around the structures that you're developing, creating the right regulatory framework, the flow of capital, and more importantly, the maturity and the growth of the local investors in our part of the world. They're really today among the top players globally in the sophistication and the capability that you're able to deliver. And when we think of the growth of where are we heading, the growth is not going to be limited to one sector. Like, it's going to be energy, it's going to be real estate, it's going to be hospitality. It is going to be across the board in every sector. It's going to grow in different parameters. But what's interesting is actually the intersection between each of these sectors and how AI will play a role to actually make sure we present what is the future of this industry going forward.
Well, if we look at capital flowing into this region, you say there's not enough VC, and I take your point, but Google has recently invested in an AI fund. In your AI fund, of course, you spent many years working at Google. Very briefly, talk to me essentially why they wanted to. What was their motivation?
So we're privileged to have Google as an anchor investor in our AI fund, and we look forward to working with them very deeply on creating value and synergies across the portfolio. I think what will drive many technology companies, especially global techs, to look at this region very seriously and compound their investments here is the fact that the region is actually already taking very bold steps and very significant commitments toward building an infrastructure layer for AI, towards building models that are sovereign and proprietary, and are opening up these assets in a way where they want entrepreneurs and the right partners to come and build on top of these layers of infra, use cases and applications that are very region-specific. And that's the thesis we're driving in our fund. We believe that these double-digit billions and billions of dollars that are going in data centers, infrastructure, energy, and all the adjacent industries around infra, and over and above the models that come on these infrastructure technologies are going to unlock $18 to $20 billion of value in the Middle East over the next 5 years in AI applications. So the thesis is very simple. These regions Our part of the world is going to invest heavily in these hard layers, and the private sector and entrepreneurs are going to look at sectors and use case by use case of how to monetize and how to go to the market with very clear value propositions. Now, the scarce resource in a lot of these plays, and I think people tend to underestimate in AI, because we hear the hype and the buzzwords, but our view is the scarce resource is really data. A lot of these models, a lot of these applications are going to utilize proprietary data to become better and closer to the user. And the unfair advantage we have here in the GCC is that these data repositories are consolidated, centralized, top-down driven by government agencies. And these government agencies are extremely agile and open enough to allow that centralization and consolidation to be access to these private agents who are going to create value on top of it. So that's the thesis. And I think you're going to see more and more top-down reimagination exercises happening in sectors like education, healthcare, defense, et cetera, and so on and so forth, that actually map to the biggest budget items on any of these national budgets in each of these geographies being tackled by AI.
We've got lots of questions. Thank you very much indeed for those coming in on Slido. Here's one. Dr. Manar, your perspective on this. What differentiates Saudi Arabia and the wider GCC in attracting long-term foreign investment versus short-term opportunistic capital? And as you and I were chatting earlier, it's very long-term capital that you're looking for at NEOM, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed. And that's a great question. Simply when you look at our region, we're really differentiated by two main factors. We have one of the youngest and the fastest growing population in the world, and we have an unbelievable economic growth. These two trajectories, if you put them together, position any company around the world to actually just tap into these opportunities and actually grow with the region as we're developing. Many of the opportunities that's available, as I mentioned, it's not focused on one sector. The diversification of opportunity across the pool is unbelievable. If you're in infrastructure, if you're in tech and digital, if you're in energy, if you're in logistics, you're in robotics, anything is available. And it will be enabled by these two things. The growing population. Today, the region, 70% is below the age of 30. An unbelievable hunger of these new talent to actually excel, go into the market, and deliver the most that they can. And the growth that you're seeing and the diversification you're seeing in the economy in the GCC and Saudi particularly is, frankly honest, is astonishing and second to none. If you remember when we announced Vision 2030, many people were very skeptical. Many people. And I would say I was one of them. But look, where are we today? We're not even in 2030. We're halfway through. We're in 2025, and we've achieved most, and we even exceeded most of the goals that we've announced for 2030. And that just tells you the potential that we have in this part of the world.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think actually you've half answered one of our other questions, which is what are the main industries that are receiving new FDI or PPP capital funding? And you mentioned it's across a range of industries. Abdulrahman, to you, what's your view on the next 3 to 5 years of Gulf outbound capital? Will it remain concentrated in US tech and infrastructure or pivot towards Asia and Africa? Now, I know most of your investments are within this region, but what's your perspective on those capital flows?
It's a great question. It's really hard to predict, but I'll tell you a number of dynamics and guiding principles that are happening in tech that might guide that flow. One, the balkanization and polarization of tech is real. Countries are building very deep hedge layers for their data and for their models and their technologies to be local. And I think this will drive them to think of allies and partners across the world who want to build and co-build with them and localize with them within their geographies. Now, one can hypothesize whether the East or the West is going to be open to such models. I think it's fairly easy to guess. Number two, I think you're going to see on a macro level, I think a lot of tech deployment from these GCC countries to actually flow inward within their own geographies, with those alliances built for that deployment to actually take place within their own countries. and we're seeing bits and pieces of this. Concepts of JVs, concepts of getting teams from the West or the East to build within your own, local ground and on your soil is a model that is evolving very rapidly in some of our geographies. I think the second thing is also, a lot of the GCC countries, especially Saudi and the UAE, are signaling to the world their readiness to become hotbeds of innovation and application layers for really extreme technologies that require regulatory changes. And I think that will drive a lot of capital into these bleeding-edge emerging technology companies to actually still reside and compound here. So to answer this question in a nutshell, I think you're going to see a shift towards more localization, a shift towards alliances and partnerships east or west, where technology ownership and sovereignty is going to be key.
Thank you very much indeed for not only answering the question, where is capital flowing now, but also, where is capital flowing in the future? Thank you for getting your crystal ball out and bringing with you today. Indeed, thanks to both of our panelists today. It's been a great discussion. I wish we could go on longer, but we are out of time. Please give your thanks to our panelists today, to Dr. Manar Al Moneef, Shukran Jazeelan, thank you very much indeed, and to Abdulrahman, thank you so much for being with us. AIT, it's been great. Thank you very much indeed, and Axel, back to you.
All right, thank you very much indeed to the panel. We turn our attention now to Saudi and its efforts to diversify its economy. Tourism has, of course, become a key test of its post-oil ambitions. Can the kingdom redefine its global identity through tourism? Please welcome the Group CEO of Red Sea Global, John Pagano. He will be in conversation with Nazanin Moshiri.